Hey comic book fans, we're talking about a new title on the channel titled ESSESSA, or at least I hope that's how it's pronounced, ESSESSA. And this is a very, when I opened this comic, I'm just going to say this now, it's probably the most beautifulest comic I've ever seen. I say that the art, the colors, the designs, it is there's like when I say there's nothing touching this, it's probably the most beautifulest comic I've ever seen off rip. And if you're familiar with Stranger Comics, I did Niobe, the series on this channel a while ago. This is in the same universe because that's Niobe right there. It's the story is not particularly about her, but she's very much a part of the story. It's locking in on another particular character, but it's this team of wizards and monsters, orcs, and they're band together for a specific mission and task. And if you're familiar with like Dungeons and Dragons and campaigns and that sort of thing, this is very much like that. And this is dark fantasy. I want to start categorizing these comic books in particular categories. This is dark fantasy. And this is what I love to see. Not just because the art is just it's a 12 out of 10. It breaks every record expectation in my head. Not just because of that, because they was about to, take out Acesia. They was about to slay her, right? For some reason. And before they can do that, this force field stopped them from doing that. And so that's when we have Niobe coming in why are you being protected by the gods? Including her own mother. Why are you being, shielded from anything? And that's when she tells them and she shows who she really is or who she's related to. And it turns out that she is from the same place or at least related to Niobe in some shape, form, or fashion because the exact same symbol that Niobe has, and especially from throughout the Niobe series, she has as well on her back. So that is why she's being shielded and protected. And on top of that, I don't want to miss. I don't want to get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure she's a vampire or some form of that as well, which is very interesting. But just the character designs and the characters you see in this book is some of the best you will ever see when it comes to design, uniqueness, and even the personalities are very cool as well. I felt this book could have been a longer you could have put a lot more pages in this book just for us hanging out with these characters and really fleshing out the world that this book is in. And the mission in this book, as you're reading this, she's being taken to Pacific Kingdom because all of this is leading to a war and she's a part of it. And there's a lot of history here that is spoken upon, but we don't really get to take time to see it ourselves. But you can very much tell just by the conversations and the characters how to interacting with each other that there's a lot that happened that we didn't get to see yet. A lot of history, a lot of chemistry between these characters and what they went through, right? We're thrown into this book right in the midst of a mission, right in the midst of what feels like a campaign that has been going on for 2 years, and you're just being dropped right into it as a spectator. That's how this book feels, but it's done so well that you are just happy to go along with the ride and what's going on with these characters and seeing the world and experiencing what is happening just around the characters themselves. The world building is very smooth. The world building part is not throwing in your face. It's very smooth how they kind of talk about places, kingdoms, lands, etc. And it's very smooth on the culture shifts that happen in the story, how you go from one place to another. or based on what character is talking about. And there's this war that is coming, and Acesia is she's like the ringleader of very much a part of that. And you have all these other characters as well that are trying to get their own people together to fight this war. And you're like, what war? Like exactly, and why is this war happening? And it very comes down to, at least from what you can read in the story, it comes down to religion, it comes down to belief, it comes down to culture, and it really breaks down to power. And that's very much being on display here with these characters and them going back and forth between good and evil. And one thing that is very, I would say, not obvious, but as you read, especially from Niobe to this book and the other ones, other books in the future that I'm going to be covering as part of this world, is that there's not a good and black and bad, right? There's a very much a gray area. There's no separate between good and evil. Everybody's done something that they're not proud of, and they're either fighting for what they think is right or what they hope is right. And then you have those that are very much twisted, I would say twisted and evil, but even they have a little extra to them as well. And you have this battle that is going on between these characters, and you're really just in awe, all right? Like you're reading what's going on, but the art and the designs and the creativity and the placement of the panels really just takes your breath away between the dialogue of these characters. And I would say one thing is that you don't get too much individual time with these characters, but their intentions are made very clear, very quick, so you're able to make that distinction between them. Again, like I said, I feel like the story could have been a lot longer than it was, and you would go back to the rest of the warriors, and getting ready for battle. And again, you have these different cultures that are banding together fighting for the same or similar things. And we're not taken completely into the mind and the perspective of the enemy. This story is written, I would say it's written more like like history. And what I mean by that is like you may not get every detail, but it's being told, like if you're a spectator thrown in time where something happened, like a history book on what happened, and it's being told from a very different perspective of somebody that was there, and you're being thrown past between characters and the parts that they played. It's very much written like that, I would say. That may be a bold or crazy thing to say, but I would say it's very much written like that. Like you're reading it like historical fantasy of characters in time. And if not anything else, like I said before, it feels very much D&D. And as these wars are fighting, a lot of people died. And what came of that was this one being that comes down. And at first he looks like a dragon, and then he shapeshifts into a humanoid being, right? Into some form of human, at something that at least a human can comprehend. And she is right there, Acesia is right there bowing to him. And they have this quick back and forth discussion on what's happening. And we assume by who is left that they at least won the war. That's what's happening. But she's very pivotal, not to just this battle, but to what is up ahead, what is to come in her story. And we don't get to see much of the battle. They showed us much of that, and they moved to here. And we see of those that are left, and we are told at least somewhat of what is coming. And again, like all around the story, what happens in the story, what leads up to the battle, and what is to come is absolutely amazing. This is only the first book. There's no books titled with her after this, which I find very unfortunate. But that's all I have for this video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Like, share, and subscribe for more. And thank you for watching.